ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ವಂದನೆಗಳು. It's a great event today at KLE Technological University, School of Management Studies and Research. Along with the Center for Social Entrepreneurship TIS, we are being part of the workshop on research methodology. Greetings to you all. To all of you, Professor Archana, Professor Samapti, Professor Chetan and the organizing team, Professor Satyajit, Professor Patil, and all other academic colleagues, and of course all the participants who are attending this workshop and conference. I am really glad to be part of this. Though I am not physically present, I am virtually trying to be so. That is how technology is shaping our lives today. On my part, I would like to add a few learnings on what it means to conduct research in different contexts and settings, and what are some of the good practices that one could possibly follow. Knowledge is developing extremely rapidly these days. There are around hundreds of journals and about hundreds of articles published within each in various professional disciplines, including medicine, anthropology, operations research, entrepreneurship, and so on. Now, usually these come out as biannual or annual publications with volumes and number of articles within each. This is how the world gets to know what each individual researcher is doing. To us as academics, we are interested in developing and disseminating knowledge through research. When we get into a faculty position, we are expected to teach as well as research, so that we know more than what we presently know. Research helps us develop better knowledge and updating. When we become aware of new theories or concepts or practices which the other researchers are sharing through these journal articles. As a research degree, the PhD or equivalent, and publications in journals which are again categorized as A, B, C, D and so on, or sometimes reported for their citation index, is what earns the credibility or the label of high quality academic research. As per a definition, research is the systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. But it may not be materials always, it could be human beings. When we observe a phenomenon within a context, that is one type of research. For example, today, due to virtualization and digitization, we may have a question like, we would like to understand the mobile usage behaviors of college students. Here, mobile usage is the phenomenon and the educational setting represents the context. The context would change, for example, if we are trying to understand the same mobile usage patterns among villagers. Research in social sciences is different from physical sciences, as the unit of analysis or what we are trying to understand, in this case whom we are trying to understand, are human beings. While in physical sciences we observe objects and events with physical properties. In social sciences, research helps improve understanding and improvement of human behavior in various contexts. As far as we know, here we have Professor Satyajit, who is an excellent researcher in the field of entrepreneurship and also does a lot of development consulting to budding entrepreneurs. There are many such other people who actually contribute to the context in which they research. When you're planning research, it could be of two types. One is pure research and the other is applied research. And for academics, pure research is more important in terms of publication in journals. Pure research helps identify basic factors that explain a phenomenon. For example, the perceptual factors in attention and interest in a particular category of products could be pure research. While if a company wants to undertake a project on what creates customer interest in one of their products, it could be called applied research. As these findings help in dealing with many decisions, maybe on the product, maybe on the design, maybe on the production, maybe on the promotion, the packaging, and many such other things. For a faculty today, it is becoming very important to publish one's research, that is pure research. In this, there are two criteria on quality. One is the peer review process, which means our article, when we submit it to a journal, is sent to a few experts in the area who would view it, review it, and give us comments on how to improve it. In this, there is something called a blind review process, which means the author's identity, that is, whether you write or I write, will not be revealed to the reviewer while they examine the article and suggest areas of improvement. Once we get the comments, we work upon it, improve upon it, and send it back to the journal for publication. The second criteria is about how many people are using our research, how many are quoting or citing our research in further research articles. Now, the more it gets cited, it's supposed to be of good quality, which is being sought by a lot more people. Many new softwares are getting developed, getting available in open source, etc., which we can make use of in qualitative and quantitative research. Today, I would like to share a few insights on how we need to build a meaningful relationship with other stakeholders in research, which I have understood based on my experience. In the field of management and social sciences, it is very important that we respect the stakeholders or those who are part of the context whom we are examining. We may undertake a survey-based research for a quantitative analysis, or may get into an ethnographic study or any such, which Professor Samapti and Archana will be sharing with you during the day. In a quantitative survey, the relationship is somewhat impersonal. We ensure confidentiality of data, processing of aggregate level of data, and not focus on any one individual's response. Standardized tools and questionnaires developed by other researchers could be used, and after the data collection and statistical analysis, a report can be shared with the stakeholders. In a qualitative study, the researcher usually immerses in the particular context with a much greater level of personal involvement. By personal, I mean willingness to devote a lot of time interacting, talking with the stakeholders in the context in order to understand the context better, so that you can interpret these findings better. One could also check out the final interpretation and understanding with the stakeholders, trying to add a few practical recommendations based on one's personal insights and analysis. Another facet is the importance to understand the nuances of the context of the stakeholders. For example, in a country like India, it is very varied. It could be the cultural practice, specific beliefs of a set of people, specific worldviews of how they understand time, place, and people. There are a few Eastern countries in which there is no concept of past, present, and future tense. Now you may imagine how different it is from a culture which has a different types of tenses. How do they understand reality? So when you get into such a context, it's important for you to understand all of these nuances. Another would be about the language with which you need to get a little familiar. You may use a translator, but I think it's important to take more efforts in trying to understand the basic essence that is being conveyed by the people in the particular context. Another important factor of a set which I would think important is about striking a balance. It's all about the research process. Now, the first thing in the balance is about being an observer and being a participant in the context. We should always remember that we are researchers and not social workers. There may be times when we get into a research that explores a social problem or a challenge. We cannot provide solutions. Our agenda is to just recommend solutions. So, but at the same time, I think it does not mean that we do not respect them or that we are making use of them only as data points. From my experience, I think if we have internalized a basic sense of respect, but of course with some level of detachment, and of course with a high level of gratitude for all the data that they are sharing with you, it translates into your behavior and the process is smooth and egalitarian. Imagine a scenario when people are going to ask you a lot of questions and you are going to reveal a lot of your personal data. How comfortable are you with that? I think we should learn to empathize with that other side and be grateful for the inputs that they are trying to give us. Another balance that we need to strike is about being rational and emotional. It is better not to get into a personal emotional attachment with the stakeholders as we don't give solutions. It is not practical. However, maintaining too much of a distance by being very rational and distant can also sometimes hamper how freely people are able to share data on their context. I think it's very important that they give out data very truthfully from their heart. Looking at another point of view of research, we may start at a basic level called exploratory research, wherein you identify what is it that you want to study. You may first of all go and visit that place, talk to somebody, then understand, okay, I may want to understand the buying patterns, say the mobile usage patterns in this village and how they're making use of this to buy a product. Okay, it could be that. So after which what happens is we usually get into more reading, which is about review of literature. Now that helps you develop a better understanding of the variables that you're trying to study. Now with that, when you go and start getting involved a little more and people are sharing the what's and the how's a little more deeply, then you get some more data to interpret, which can be called descriptive research. Going further at a deeper level, it becomes inductive or deductive research where you as a researcher are able to capture a context very comprehensively and of course hypothesize and maybe detect certain patterns or connections among the variables. For example, religious practices or beliefs may have a role to play in the purchasing behavior of the villagers, or even just the usage of mobile phones. They don't approve of it. So when it goes into causal level that this could lead to this, etc., then It is a deeper level of research. Now, what I have been talking to you is from especially about that balancing rationality, emotionality, observation versus participation. It's all about understanding a particular context. Now, there are times when we need to collect data from particular organizations. Now, this could be for your PhD or maybe for your general research. Now, when you approach an organization or a company, one of the first challenges is to tell them how the findings of the study will be useful to them in creating a new practice or policy. Getting the consent of people from the higher management is important. I think one important key is your persistence in pursuing with a number of visits and presentation to convince them on the utility of your research. I won't say you'll be always successful, but our persistence is important. Please note that when we carry it out, it is pure research and it need not help them directly with anything to do with their business. So their level of interest will naturally be not be very high as much as we have on our research. So it is a challenge to convince them to get the data. In such instances, it is a good practice sometimes when people are talking to you to share with them some articles, some business magazine articles on the topic, how it would be important, etc. And another good thing would be to write back when you hold interviews, write back to the people on what you have understood from the interviews, say in a one page as a preliminary finding. Now, this ensures the validity or the correctness of your interpretation based on whatever data you could collect during the interview. And I think it's also important to convey respect to the other side. Let us be clear that all that we do in terms of research is indicative of some findings. There is never exactness about a finding. I would say exactness in research is sometimes not possible, rarely possible, and sometimes never possible. There is nothing like a correct finding. We can know that something works. For example, if you are studying something about the banking industry, a rural branch functioning would be very different from a branch working in the metro. So, our ability to generalize, to say that it is applicable to very many different settings, also sometimes does not hold good. These are various challenges when we try to get into the research process. Towards the conclusion, I would like to kind of sum it up saying that research in social sciences is different from research in physical sciences. The research can be pure or applied, and pure is of interest to us as academics. It can begin with exploration, description, and a deeper level of causal inferences with induction and deduction towards the later stages. Qualitative research and quantitative research are equally important in their own way. Qualitative research is more involving on the part of the researcher, while quantitative is impersonal. While you're being involved with researching on a phenomenon in a particular context, it is important to understand, familiarize, and respect the stakeholders. It is important to balance being an observer as much as being a participant in the process. It is important to balance emotionality and rationality. In an organization, when we approach, it is important to get consent, validation, and the requirement to go by organizational procedures. Every company could be different. We got to learn to adapt to all of what they want accordingly. And the success rate, I would say, naturally is not very high. Conversion, what we call it, that is when we approach 10 people, only about 4 will say okay about it. So it is a difficult process, but nevertheless, it is a It's a good learning process. You may be taking the first step today. I wish each of the participants the best of luck in the start of your research journey. Research is a painstaking process. However, its fruits are very sweet, not just for you, but for many others who could follow you. Take pride in your research as an academic. PRIDE. P, I would say, is purposefulness. For you, you should have a sense of purpose as to why you're understanding purchase behavior. Why am I trying to understand organizational commitment? That first level of passion is very important. For your institution, when you develop as a researcher, it is good because it is improving the quality of education. For the academic community, when you share your finding, others can also follow the trail. And of course, the stakeholders at large. Small and medium sector was hardly studied earlier, but now that's becoming an important focus of research. So policies could develop on those lines. So the purposefulness is very important. R, I would say, stands for rigor and relevance. Rigor is about ensuring serious spirit of inquiry, and relevance is about interpretations that are to be made appropriate to the context. Even the problem definition should be something relevant to the context. You can speak Greek and Latin and it does not get relevant. I would stand for incessant efforts to improve. There is no full stop. You keep improving little by little, but you should persist. It should be incessant. Data, D. Data should be meaningful and authentic. We should put in as much hard work to see that the data that we get is meaningful. Sometimes may use a questionnaire or a tool, but you as a researcher must think, is this questionnaire, though standardized, is that actually making sense to be used in this particular context? Now these I think is a lot of personal level of reflection that you need to undertake as a researcher. Of course, the last is about excellence, which is about a standard that high standard that we need to strive for as a goal. Nobody starts off as a great researcher. Everybody begins small, but then with lot of concerted, committed efforts, one could definitely develop as a respectable academic. Of course, we are all good teachers. I think that's where we were staying well. But now the pressure on research is also improving, and I think it also adds a lot of importance to you as part of the academic community. Be proud of your research. Take pride in your research. With this, let me conclude wishing you all a great success of this research methodology workshop. Thank you very much. Wish you the best of luck.